Aloha, I'm DreamingBear.
And I'm Destiny.
And we want to welcome you to another episode of the Literati Experience, where we come together every week and we discuss the various thoughts of the authors featured in the Literati series. Of course, we base these on the Literati Challenge, which was an opportunity for people to get involved in the series, where you can listen to an episode every day, take notes on that episode, take the parts that really speak to you and leave the parts that don't. But in a way, it's kind of like the way I set it up was sort of a time travel experience where people could go back in time, sit for 10 to 15 minutes with various people throughout history, men, women, from every culture that I can find literature from, and offer their insights in a compendium, a sort of almanac of human thought and experience. And so that's where the Literati series sort of is in this moment. We're at about almost 300 separate authors or thinkers. Some of them aren't even authors. They're just people that I call literati because for me that word means people who live a life worth writing about, or the writable life. And oftentimes that also entails fictional characters or people who appear to have a hold on the human psyche in some way, shape, or form, and have an influence in the way humanity has developed across the years. So today is no different. We're going to be going back in time. Let's go ahead and type in our time machine, right? We'll pull the lever, and here we are in the ancient time of Marcus Aurelius, also known as the philosopher king. And he had so much good, juicy wisdom. You know, it's interesting. He falls in this same category as the Stoics, and we recently did Seneca. Seneca, almost the opposite, a poor, slavish type person who came into philosophy, and now Marcus Aurelius, an emperor king, literally, and a philosopher who lived his life according to a very strict Stoic code. And when I listen to it, I always get the sense that this resonates strongly to me as a balanced approach to both spiritual, mental, and physical living on planet Earth. It's almost the closest thing I can sum up to would be a handbook for the human experience itself and how to live well, not just live, but to live well. Is that kind of the overarching, what was your big takeaway from him? I mean, if he had one thrusting message for you, what would that have been?
It just, when I was listening to him, it felt like I was on a ride going deep into the universal knowledge of the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just takes you deep.
He does.
Yeah.
He has the way of just hitting straight to the core of things, you know, and not pitter-patting around the edges of it, as it were. So when we talk about Marcus Aurelius, we can't help but to think of an ancient time. Somehow, though, his words resonate in the here and now today. They seem more apropos than ever before. And if you're wondering where we're at today, we are at a place called the Blue Phoenix Sanctuary. And just a little place that we have over here that we like to come to. It's a beautiful log cabin and nestled up here amongst the forests of a volcanic mountain slope. What does it mean to be a Vulcan in today's day and age? We could give a little bit of, get a little Vulcan. How many Vulcans? It could be Nanu too. What was that? So we got the trees behind us, and let's get right on into it. What did Marcus Aurelius have to say? We're going to go down the list, try to get to as many of these as we can.
First thing, happiness of life depends on quality of thoughts.
The happiness of our life depends directly upon the quality of our thoughts. What does that raise for you?
It means to watch your thoughts, observe what you're thinking about and how you think about things, and it all comes down to how you think. If you want to be a happy person, but you thinking, negative, sad thoughts, you're never going to be a happy person. you have to observe yourself and make a change in the areas that you feel are fit in the way of thinking that you're doing.
Yeah, I get the sense that, for me at least, in my life, I've chosen to think of my mind's workings, the inner workings of my thoughts, as a kind of garden, and I've mentioned this in other episodes, but I've always sought to cultivate it with the best aspects. Only the best music, only the best aspects of the human communication. I try to cultivate my mind in that way. And that means whatever you put into it is going to come out. And so in the early stages of my journey on the planet, it was about really letting myself drop into the things that great thinkers had said before and memorizing those things until they became a part of me. And I think that there's a point, though, where we become the master of our own thoughts, and our ability to take a hold of ourselves is a kind of discipline that I think society may not be completely familiar with. But I find great resonance in this notion that the quality of our life is directly correlated to the quality of our thoughts. Not the quantity, it's the quality. How beautiful, for me the standard is, how beautiful is it? And the more beautiful the thought, then for me the more resonant and therefore higher quality. I think of myself kind of as a connoisseur of thoughts, and I think that we need to come back to that place where we collect thoughts the way some people collect vintage stashes of wine, and they savor a certain bouquet. For me, if I had a bouquet to thought, it would be the thoughts that bring joy, the thoughts that bring awareness, the thoughts that bring tenderness and love, the thoughts that bring a sense of goosebump. So, all right, what else we got from our good friend Marcus Aurelius?
To begin is half the work.
What does that say for you?
It means you just got to get started, and once you do, it will roll on from there.
Right, I think later on he says, to start is half the work, so do that, and then start again, and you'll be finished. Because the next start will be the other half of the work. Start, and then start again. I like that.
Yeah.
A big part of getting things done is that first initial getting off, what I like to call lighting a fire under the ass of action, and really getting ourselves going in a direction of inspiration. Getting that motivational feeling behind what we say and do is such a powerful part of getting things done. Of course, the other half is the consistency, the show-upness, as it were, the ability to see things through to a sense of completion. So for me, it's not just about starting, it's about finishing as well. How about you?
True. Definitely true. Yeah, because if you don't finish, you might as well have never started.
You just got a lot of half-finished projects.
Yeah.
Half-finished lives. Some people live half-finished lives.
Yeah.
All right, so get started. Whatever that thing is you've been dreaming of, then you'll be halfway there already. All right, what else we got?
The act of dying is one of the acts of life.
That's so important to remember, isn't it? That we're not just here to live, but everyone is kind of born to die in a way. And potentially, what I love about the Stoics is that they say potentially that a good life leads to a good death, or that in some way your death should reflect the quality of your life. And what does a good death mean? That's a question we have to ask ourselves, and I think we all have our opinions. I have this fantasy that one day I'll be making love to you, and then at that moment of climax, if I die, I just go back into the womb and be reborn all over again and start fresh. But what is a good death, really? To some warriors, a good death is dying in battle. I think the Apaches had a saying, today is a good day to die, which is another way of saying today is a great day to live. If death is one of the acts of life, that makes it one of the rites of passage of being a human. Just like being born, just like adolescence, just like youth and middle age and old age. These are, I guess you could call them, acts of life, right? So important to remember that there can be no life without death, and that to not remember that every day is to rob yourself of the awareness around the preciousness and ephemeral nature of life. Ephemeral, that word means lasting but a single moment. In reality, our lives are so ephemeral. And we have to remember that, because that's the carpe diem, that's the basio diem, the kissing the day because it's all you have in this moment. He says later on, the future is nothing. The past doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
All we have is this present. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that?
No.
No? Pretty complete?
Yeah.
All right, let's move right along.
Doing good to others should come naturally.
But he says as naturally as breathing, and he kind of insinuates that as naturally as an animal flies, a bird flies, we should do good to one another, right? What does that say to you? I mean, what does that bring up for you?
I feel like it's something that should be a philosophy for everyone. Every living being naturally wants to give, because when you give, you feel good in yourself and you feel like you have a purpose. And I think those that don't find it natural, or they're not really connected to who they really are, you know, they haven't really gotten in touch with what they have to give. If they feel like they don't have anything to give, then they don't want to give, you know.
Of course, he's not talking just about giving to others. He's saying to do good. That doesn't mean necessarily just to give. I mean, what does to do good to others mean is the question. Does it mean to go out of our way to make their lives better? Does it mean, what does it mean? You have to ask yourself this question and then define your own terms for what success looks like in this area, and then enact it in your everyday life.
Yeah, I guess everyone can have their own perspective of what it means to do good.
To do good to others.
To others, yeah.
But he's saying, let it be a matter of fact. Let it be a part of your very existence. That just as a matter of moving through the world, you're doing good to others. If we could aspire to that, I think we would be a lot better off as a society. If that was the golden rule, and it kind of is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, kind of goes in line with that. But this is a more golden rule in a way, because this doesn't even ask for anything in return. Not even thinking about what they would do for you. It's just do good to others.
Yeah.
That's your life. You go around being good to other people. What a refreshing approach to the social scenes of humanity, society. We do try to be, I guess, have manners, you could say, and be cordial to one another. But beyond that and beneath that, there's usually a subtle layer of resentment on some people's behalf, maybe desperation on other people's behalf, misunderstanding for sure, because a lot gets lost in translation from being a human and connecting to, like having a thought, converting it into a word, and then expressing that to someone and not knowing how that's going to be taken. Yeah, very cool. All right, what else do we got? Anything you want to add to that? Okay.
To live happily is an inner power of soul.
What does that tell you?
It means happiness is an emotion of the soul. It's an essence.
Superpower, sounds like. I mean, if your superpower is happiness, let's call soul power superpower. You could put those words interchangeably, right? Imagine if there was, instead of Captain America, whose superpower is he has a serum that makes him strong, instead your superpower is happiness.
I like that.
You like, it just comes out of you, it fuses out of you, and then you give it on to other people and it becomes contagious in a way. I mean, your superpower being, or your soul power being happiness, that really takes it out of the realm of circumstance, out of the realm of what may or may not have happened to you, and puts it squarely in the palm of your hand, that your happiness is yours to create. it's yours to take command of. And that if you can do so, that's part of your soul's power.
Wow, yeah. That's powerful.
That's powerful. All right, Wonder Twin power. Activate. All right, what else do we got here? Did you want to comment on that?
Very little is required to have happy life. It's all in your thinking.
What does that say to you?
You don't need a whole lot. You can have absolutely nothing and still be happy, because it all depends on how you think. If you think you're happy and if you think that you're free, then you're gonna be that, and you don't need anything other than your thoughts to create your reality.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. What else?
Poverty is the mother of crime.
I like to think that poverty breeds desperation in a way, and desperation is where crime sort of is birthed in that moment when people don't have enough to meet their own needs. I was raised in a very poverty-stricken way, my mother being Native American, my father being Palestinian, and the collected sort of inheritance of displacement that they gave from, growing up in these various poverty situations. And I realized that a lot of the crime that I saw around me, a lot of the things, the drug use, the other things, are born out of a sense of desperation, a sense of not having enough, of not being able to meet your basic needs in a way.
Yeah.
And then the poverty mentality develops out of that. And that's where you get sort of ghetto-looking communities, and people who have the poverty mentality are in a sort of mentality of lack at all times. They never quite have enough to meet their needs.
Yeah.
And that, again, goes back to what Marcus Aurelius says, that the quality of your thoughts affects the quality of your life. If you don't have a high-quality life, your thoughts sometimes, you could maybe, if that's true, he said, it could be the other way around. The quality of your life could also affect the quality of your thoughts. And so poverty puts a quality of life that's left to be desired, many things. What does that say to you?
Yeah, I think if you think to yourself you don't have what you need, then you're gonna be in a position where you feel like you have to do anything to get what you need, and it's never gonna be enough for you. So you're kind of in that cycle of never having enough, and that definitely makes you desperate and makes you want to do bad things to get what you want and need, just to take care of yourself. But it's...
Well, bad things. So you just try to do what you have to survive, basically.
Yeah.
In a world that... It's hard when you're born into poverty because you don't really know another reality. I remember growing up and not knowing that people lived well until I went outside of my immediate sphere. Luckily, I did that very young. And I could see that there are all kinds of various lifestyles. Some people have wisdom around money and they just draw it in like magnets. Some people have a sort of level of aesthetic cleanliness that I learned a lot from, because in the poverty situation, what you see is a lot of ugliness. Just run down things, run down people, and run down worlds. Not a lot to take pride in other words. But in more affluent or wealthy places, you see that everyone takes care of everything. Of course, they have the means to do so. But also, when there's a lack of poverty, there's an increase in creativity, in my opinion. Now, some creativity is born out of necessity, meaning, that you've heard that phrase, the starving artist. It's because when you're going after what you love and you haven't learned yet how to make that work for you, which I had to learn. I went through many phases. I went through 10 years as a minister, and I traveled around the world doing that. And then I went into 10 years as a college professor, and I taught in various universities across the nation. And then this last 10-year cycle has been 10 years as a poet and a producer and a musician and a traveling edutainer, I like to say, edutainment. And we keep reinventing ourselves across our lifetime. We keep coming into these phases where we can meet ourselves on different levels. And I think that's one of the best things about it. He keeps reasserting in this peace that life itself is change, it's transformation. Loss itself is just transformation, and how we react to it is up to us.
Mm-hmm.
How we deal with change and transformation is up to us, in other words.
Yeah.
What do you want to add to that? Anything?
Mm-mm.
No? All right. How you doing out there? Be sure and touch base, if you haven't already, with Marcus Aurelius, and you'll see that he has so much wisdom to offer. We just tip of the iceberg with him today here. But come on, let's see what else we have in the rabbit hole of wonder.
Compare yourself from your highest self. That's how you measure your success.
Tell me what that means for you.
Wow, so I guess you measure your success based on where you are and where you want to be. And if you are where you want to be, you could say you're very successful.
That's an interesting way of thinking about it. I didn't think of it from that perspective. My thought was, what's the most beautiful version of myself? This is how I have approached this. Without knowing a lot of these thoughts of Marcus Aurelius, I think that the person who tries to live earnestly and to truly live and suck the marrow out of life, as Thoreau would say, those people kind of come to these conclusions as a matter of just living. Because truth is truth, and it runs parallel to itself in all things. So it wouldn't be uncommon, if you're living an authentic life, to come to these authentic understandings that Marcus Aurelius has come to, like this particular one. And so if you approach, like I've approached, what's the most beautiful version of DreamingBear? What's the best version of who I could be? And how do I enact that being upon the world? How do I meet myself in those places? And never to judge myself based on what Super Johnny is doing, or on what Destiny is doing, or on what my constituency might be doing or thinking, but to base my definition of success, because we need our own definition. She's looking for the dogs outside. We got little pups up in the back. But our own definition of success, to meet that, means to ask ourselves, how close did I get to being the most beautiful version of myself? To being the best, whatever that might mean to you, version of who you could be, right?
Yeah.
And having the courage to enact that person. All right, what else do we got? Anything you want to add to that? Okay.
Universal order and personal order are the same.
Are the thing?
The same.
The same. Universal order and personal order are the same. What does that say to you?
I guess if you're in alignment with your higher self, then you are in alignment with what you're born to do. And I can see that being the same, you know?
It's sort of another way of saying as above, so below. Or as within, so without.
Yeah, like don't do things based on what other people want you to do.
Right.
Do them based on what you are born to do, what you feel like you want to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to realize that there's a direct correlation between what you do, the movements that you make, and the movements of cosmoses, the movements of the universe, the movements of subatomic particles, because universal order and personal order are one and the same. And that's to say, for me, when I try to do what the chaos magic practitioners call paradigm shifting, which is kind of what Literati is for me. It's this opportunity to paradigm shift. Paradigm shifting is a practice where you try on multiple ways of seeing the world. You see, like one day you wake up and you think, how does the world look to an Orthodox Jew? The next morning you might wake up and say, okay, how does the world look to an Orthodox Muslim? And the next morning you might say, how does it look to an atheist? And then the next day you might say, how does it look to a person who can't see? You know, or how does it, you basically try to sense the world from as many perspectives as you can. In the process, you dislodge, this is what the chaos magic practitioners such as Austin Osman Spar would suggest, is that you dislodge this subliminal and subconscious programming that you've been given, because you you're able to see from various perspectives. And for me, when I do the Literati series, I go into that paradigm shifting state where I'm thinking, well, these are the common themes, and this is what someone from ancient China had to say about it. This is what someone from the Middle East has to say about it. This is what a woman slave in the deep South in 200-year-ago America had to say about it, and then compare those perspectives and dislodge programming that's not necessary. And in that way enrich and enlarge and sort of add a flavor to the human experience beyond my particular ability to reach. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah.
Right on?
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Anything you want to add to that? Okay.
Habitual thoughts equal soul character.
Tell me what that means to you.
I guess everyone has that one thing they keep coming back to. And I guess that is your soul character talking to you. It's like that thing you just can't live without. Habitual thought that's in the back of your mind at almost every moment. It's something you need to keep going in life. Yeah.
For me, it says that which you think most often you become, essentially. That every time you let a thought run through your head, you're somehow informing. The word information. That means that everything is a form of latent manifestation that congeals upon intention. We call that information, right? That how you inform is how you become, essentially. And so again, back to the quality of thoughts, determining the quality of life. More than that, what you think you become, quite literally, there is no distinction between thinking and being. What you think is what you are. And I think that I've tried to keep that in mind my whole life. And when thoughts, we all have thoughts that aren't pleasant from time to time. And I've always tried to get those thoughts out of my head as soon as possible, to sort of, like an ugly image or something like that, to try to just erase it. When I was younger, I used to have this method where I would imagine the thought, and I would either take a sword and cut it in my mind, like I would just cut the thought in half and shatter it, or I would burn it in my mind, so that the thought tried to disappear and try to get rid of the ugly images that way, as an inner practice. How about you? Anything you want to add?
I do that too.
Yeah?
Yeah, if I see something that I don't want to think about, I just say deflect.
Deflect.
And it's gone.
Delete.
Yeah.
Alt delete. You
It's
command
gone.
alt delete.
I do a deflect and then light. I do like deflect and I give it light and love.
Nice.
I bless it. After it's gone, I bless it.
That's it.
And then it's done.
I do kind of a Star Trek transporter thing where I get it out of my mind, it turns into atoms and disappears into space or something. What's your method of getting rid of unpleasant imagery in your mind? Think about that. Okay, what else we got from Marcus Aurelius in our last few minutes?
Let's see, there's so many left.
There are. Well, let's just go as many as we can.
Let's try to choose the best ones, because there's just so many left.
That's for these folks to find out. They got to go watch this episode and see what resonates with them.
I like this one.
Okay.
Accept that the nature of the universe is to change things that are into something new.
And everything that is sort of a seed for what will be. What does that say for you?
Yeah, you can't fight change. Even if you try, you just can't.
You can. It might not be smooth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it will happen regardless.
As someone who doesn't really like change, it has been a big lesson that if you just surrender to it, things are just so much easier. It's the resistance to change that makes things hard and unpleasant. but it's the natural process of life. And if you surrender and you just say, okay, no matter what happens, I'm in this life to be part of the ride, to be part of the flow. I'm here as I'm meant to, and I'm not gonna fight it, you know? So
beautiful.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's really good. Change comes. I like what Jack Kerouac says. He says, accept loss forever. And I've tried to do that. You know, change can seem like loss, especially when you like what you have or the way things are and they change to something you don't like. It can seem like loss, but just like everything else in life, that's the one thing you can be certain of, is that everything that you know will change. And that's part of the beauty of life. It's part of what keeps it interesting. If there were no change, if life were immutable, in other words, it might not be as interesting. There's something beautiful about the thought that just around the corner of every moment, there's a surprise. It might not be, it could be a good surprise, it could be a scary surprise, it could be it's an unexpected, it's an unknown. And that's what we're afraid of, but it's also what makes life interesting. It's this essence, this quality of essence that comes from the mystery of existence, meeting the moment in a way that it doesn't seem predestined or scripted in some way, that things happen and they seem to be spontaneous, instantaneous manifestations of possibility. And how we respond to those and navigate those. If we can get good at meeting change with preparation, mental preparation, I should say, then every change becomes an opportunity. Not just a change, not just a transformation, but an opportunity to go into higher realms of existence, right? I was just recently doing Gilgamesh, and it says that Gilgamesh had to leave heaven as a commandment from the gods, but that his partner Enkidu had to leave paradise as a step towards a higher evolution, as a necessary step towards higher evolution. And I thought that was an interesting distinction, that sometimes we transition from space of present moment realities into space of what will be moment realities, and how we meet that determines the outcome. All right, what else we got?
The universe is transformation. Life is opinion.
Yeah, I think we've covered that. What else?
Keep digging inside.
Yeah, because this is an infinite wellspring, right? What do you get from keep digging inside?
Don't forget to always look within yourself, because that's where the answers are.
And what do you dig for? You dig for treasures. Usually you think about digging for treasure, right? And there's always another diamond in your rough, as it were. There's always another gem in your collection of possibilities. You know, we're all born with gifts and callings, and then because we ignore those gifts and callings, because we limit our thinking, we limit our lives, and that puts us in a state where we're not really in touch with what we're capable of doing. But if you really apply yourself to life, you find that you have hidden talents that are always wanting to come out. And it happens in phases. You know, I remember when I was younger, I used to do elaborate oil paintings, and then 20 years might go by, and then next something else, then you're doing music, and then you're doing something else, but there's always something new to discover. And it seems like the best centenarians, or in other words, people who live into 100 and longer, are those who have interests, who have something that they really find passion in doing and experiencing, right?
Yeah.
So when you dig, never stop digging for that gold, not that treasure that is inherently in the soil of our souls, right?
Yeah.
A calling to go within. All right, and our last one, we don't want to keep you too long. We invite you to go and check out Marcus Aurelius, but if you had to pick one more from his arsenal of beauty here, his weapons of mass creation, what would that be?
I know you like this one. So
Tell me.
do every act of your life as if it were your last.
Freedom! It's like a Braveheart moment right there. Do every act of your life as if it were your last. I actually do that. Can you say that I do that?
You do.
I try to make sure that there's always an I love you as the last thing that's being said, and I'm trying to make sure that I accomplish everything and bring it to full completion before the end of the day, before I move on to something else. I try to convey the urgency of the moment. I think that part of that comes from a lot of death around me as a young person and a lot of loss along the years, especially as a very young person. At the age of 8, I bore witness to my brother's death, and that awakened me out of my slumber of innocence and into the state of awareness that life could end at any moment, suddenly and without warning. And that therefore I had not only the obligation to live enough life for two, in this case, but to also make sure that the life that I live in every moment is meeting myself in a certain standard. And that standard for me is to make the most of every moment, that every moment counts. That really brings home that truth.
Yeah.
Every moment counts, especially this one, right? What about you?
You do that so well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
every day is a day complete, and I don't know how you do it, but
Carpe diem.
yeah, I still have a lot to learn from you about that, but I think a little differently about it, just because I'm more slow-minded. I like to take things slow, and I don't like to put pressure on myself. So for me, I don't live with the thought of like, oh, I gotta get things done. I live with the thought of, I want to enjoy this moment,
Right.
and that is enough for me. If I can just be still and savor what is, I'll be happy at the end of every day.
And for me, savoring the moment is accomplishing beautiful things. You know, like I've written 13 books. I have 13 albums out as well. I have multiple degrees, a PhD, a master's degree, a BA. And I accomplished a lot in my life early on. I was a college professor by the time I was 26 years old. So I did all this because I was driven to live, as Thoreau would say, to suck all the marrow out of life, and not when I come to die discover that I'd never actually lived, because living, he would say again, is so dear. And I think of Thoreau as being a direct descendant of Marcus Aurelius, you know, that the simplicity of life, the beauty of investing ourselves 100% in what it means to be alive, the poetry of life, and to live a life worth writing about, to live literati, which is why I have that word. It's one of the first tattoos I got. You know how Tupac has thug life right here on his? I have literati blazed right across my, I guess you would call it my solar plexus. And because for me, living a life worth writing about is living the authentic life. And so I hope that you've enjoyed joining us in our dive into the past. Time machine, take us back to the present moment, and here we are once again. Wanting you to have as much fun as we do in this discussion, and just to remember that we're just authentic beings, inviting you into an authentic conversation. If you had to take one thing and give it to these people from Marcus Aurelius, if you had to really distill it down to the pearl drop of goodness, what would it be? What would be the one takeaway?
Yes. Enjoy the ride of life.
Enjoy the ride. Because it's all you got. All right, I hope you're enjoying your ride. From all of us here and our puppies, who you probably heard barking in the background, wanting us to come give them some love. We'll do that now. We want to say thank you for joining us. Viva l'evolution, viva literate, and aloha.
Aloha.